We are going live like we always do on Wednesdays, and we are here to bring you guests that are garden innovators, uh, inventors, and experts.
Yay!
And so today we have a repeat guest, our first repeat
I know
guest.
this is you guys. We had a great conversation with our guest. This is it's going to be Cindy Funes. We talked with her back in May about summer container gardening, and she is so amazing. Has awesome tips.
Yep.
She's back today. We invited her to talk about fall and winter container gardening, and she's got some awesome tips to share with us.
Yep, lots of tips and tricks, do's and don'ts. It's going to be fun. I'll get her invited here.
So, in case you've never met Cindy, she's an amazing professional container garden designer here in the Seattle area in the Pacific Northwest where we live. And she designs containers. She's a speaker and an educator, and she just loves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's a wealth of knowledge, and we're getting her invited here right now. Also, we're going to pin here in the comments. Oh, there's Cindy right there.
Oh, hi, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
How are you today?
How are you?
We're good. We're good. We're kind of waking up. You know, it's still morning here in our area, right?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, a little slow this morning.
I know. Same here.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna apologize right off the bat because I'm just coming off of a little cold, and so I might sound a little squawky, and I'm gonna try to curtail any coughing, but just to give everyone a heads up.
Okay. Well, you sound great.
You sound.
Okay.
Yeah, you sound good.
Great, thanks.
And really quick too, we just pinned your blog web address in the comments. So anybody listening, if you want to check out Cindy's blog, what she's been up to, and a really great blog article about fall gardening and winter gardening, go to click through on that link and check out her blog.
Yeah, definitely.
It'll
delve
a little deeper into what we're going to talk about.
Exactly. I know. I was just thinking you have so much good information, just awesome, fun tips to share with us. We can't wait to get started.
Yeah. And thank you for being. We haven't said that already.
You have, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Cindy, should we get going here?
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay. So we thought it'd be fun to start with, this question, like for anybody that missed our previous live with you in May, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your container garden design business here in the Seattle area?
Yeah, of course. So I have been container gardening professionally for over 15 years, which is crazy to think about. And my niche has always been container gardening. I like that it's contained. I like it's manageable. I can create like little pockets of beauty and happiness and incorporate them in people's living environments. And so container gardening has just kind of always been my thing. I've never really strayed from that. I own and manage a container gardening business, Garden Revelry, and we design, install, and maintain gardens. I am pivoting that a little bit. I've had a little bit of a shift recently, and I am moving away from that kind of seasonal design change out and maintenance and doing more collaboration and consults on large new installations, and then also kind of taking a new path of consulting and coaching and a little more speaking and hoping to launch some online coursework soon. So that's where I'm at now. So, and beyond that, I'm married, and I have 3 adult children and a dog Tucker, that you'll likely see if you follow me at all. You'll see his little face here and there. He's always at my hip, and so he's out helping me shop for plants. He's often helped designing. He's kind of a nuisance actually, but he's a fun nuisance, so we love him.
He's adorable.
He's your container buddy.
He is. He's under my desk right now. Maybe we'll have him say hi at the end.
Yeah, have him say hi. We want to see him. Yeah. Say hi to Tucker.
Okay, Tucker, come here. Real quick. What?
We got to meet Tucker.
Oh, he's stretching. We'll go on. We'll move on. He'll come up later.
He's not ready for camera yet.
He's
Real quick. Come say hi.
Oh, there's Tucker. Look at that little face.
Hi, Tucker. Oh.
Okay. Bye.
Nice to see you again.
So Cindy, we wanted to ask you, now that it's fall season, do you have any techniques or favorite plants you like to use to convert some of your summer containers over into fall or winter containers?
Yeah. So the way that we approach it, or that I approach it, is first and foremost, we just assess the plantings from the summer, right? So we look and I say, is there anything that's in this planter that is going to be useful and hardy enough to make it through the fall and winter. So, and does it add something? Does it add interest, or, you know, does it add structural form or maybe some color that I'd be wanting to have? So that's kind of the first thing that I do. I just assess if I'm going to keep anything in the planter. And then after that, I remove everything else, and you know, and then just compost it, and then we loosen up the soil. So, you know, one of my favorite tools is a hori hori, and we will get into that soil and just really rough it up and fluff it up, and then that way we can tell if we need to add soil to the planter at all. Often we don't, if we've done a good job of, when we're pulling things out, shaking the soil off of the roots. And if we need a little bit of soil, that soil is coming back in the new plants that we're planting in the container. So there's not a lot of soil being added if we do this right. We're breaking up roots, and we're basically fluffing up that soil also, so that when we plant the new plants, the roots can kind of just filter down through that soil. It's a little bit more porous, drainage is better, yada, yada, yada. So that's the first thing. And then from there, I would look at a color theme or palette that I wanted to use for the fall and autumn. And so that's kind of the techniques that we use. And then from there, I'm probably looking, once I establish a color palette, I'm kind of double downing, or I'll double down on foliage color. Like I'm looking for that color maybe in foliage more so than I would in blooms.
Nice.
And then I'm looking at texture. I'm making sure that I've got a variety of texture, you know, big shiny leaves and small leaves and maybe some strappy leaves. And then I tend to, in the fall, which I don't necessarily do in the spring or summer, I'm looking for persistent seed heads, or fruit that can kind of carry on. Like rose hips would be a perfect example. I might look and clip out some, you know, rose hips from some of my roses in my garden to just kind of plug into my planter for some additional interest. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
so, I can just
That's
picture
great.
those. Yeah, just adding so much just texture and
Well,
structure.
and you make it sound so easy just
Yeah.
to convert the plants from the summer containers into the fall and winter. That sounds really, you make it sound really easy to get in there and do. I know it's not,
Well,
but
you know, it's not too challenging. I mean, often your spring and summer containers are going to hold more annuals. And so those are going to be pretty easy to pop out. You're going to get your hori hori and you're just kind of sawing around them and they're just going to pop out. They've only been in for a season. It's going to be a little tougher if you're taking out perennials, but you might be leaving those perennials if they're offering something for your fall or winter container. Like a perfect example would be maybe a pennisetum, right? That might die down in the winter, but in the fall right now has these beautiful seed heads that can kind of, you know, float in the wind. So you know, that might be harder to pop out. It's a perennial, and the longer you leave a perennial in from season to season, it's going to become more established and it's going to take a little bit more strength. But if you're doing this every season, and we in the Pacific Northwest, I should back up a little bit, we typically only have 2 seasonal changeouts a year. We can get away with that. Not everybody can do that depending on where you are in the United States. But point being is, if you leave a plant in longer, you either want to be root pruning it, again, kind of, you know, taking that hori hori saw or have a soil knife and root pruning it every season, or you're just you're popping it out. The roots aren't that established. They've been in for a season, and so they're really, it's easier than you think.
oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you said that.
I know. I'm thinking of our garden right now. It's all containers. I'm like, we have so much work to do with our perennials.
Oh, yeah.
That
You
gives
really
me
do.
motivation
Oh,
to
gosh.
do that.
Yeah.
And Cindy, you mentioned, and I can't get out of my head, I need to know more. You were talking about foliage colors that you're thinking about, you know, and just matching. Can you mention any or think of any plants to share that have just really good fall foliage going into the winter as well?
There's so many. So one of my favorites is for a focal plant, for a center plant, would be like a Goshiki osmanthus. I love that. It's got kind of spiny leaves, so it's a little bit different. And then the leaves itself are this mix of chartreuse and olive and ivory. And then the new growth
Beautiful.
comes out burgundy or kind of plummy. So those are all those kind of autumnal tones that I love. I also love for a focal plant, a Sasanqua camellia. Sasanquas are a little smaller leaves than your traditional camellia. They're easier to prune, and they bloom from fall to kind of through winter versus your japonicas that are more spring blooming. And so you could get like a Setsugekka, which is these beautiful white flowers that are very wintry, or the Yuletide camellia. Yuletide, is December and has red flowers with yellow stamens. So they have nice structure, but then they offer this bloom in the fall and winter season that might be a little bit unexpected. I love a Mahonia soft caress. It's got this kind of feathery foliage. It's not necessarily autumnal color, but it can pair well with other autumnal colored things like heucheras or caryxes. There's just so many. Evergreens, some of your, like, I love the fern spray cypress. It's got a twisting nature to it, and then it has some golden tones at the tips of its leaves. And then, so that's kind of the focal plants that those are some of my favorite focal plants. And then if you were to think of kind of that second layer, there's just a ton that we use. We use heucheras, we use hellebores, we use virginias, we use a ton of ferns offer texture. Heaths and heathers are great. They offer texture, and then they're also they're winter or spring, early spring blooming. Gaultheria procumbens is a great plant to put in your containers because it offers berries throughout the season, but then also the foliage turns kind of a plummy purpley color as the temps get colder. Yeah, and then caryxes, obviously. And then I guess I should say is the pop of color, right? So we're talking about foliage, but then I really do love I love autumn for that nature because we focus on foliage because there's not as much bloom available. But you can always bring in pops of color with your blooms. And typically for us, that would be either with pansies, violas, or cyclamen. Those are kind of the three annuals that we tend to pop in, mixed with all of these other plants.
Great.
So much plant material. Gosh, so many options.
And I just hit the tip of the iceberg. There's so many plants out there.
Wow, I'm inspired. I have to look up a couple of those plants you mentioned as well because I don't know those yet. So, okay, moving forward, because we could probably talk a lot more about all of those fun things. Can you share some examples of some different container designs you've created for clients in the past year or two, kind of fall, winter containers?
Again, so many, right? I mean, we've got all these clients, all these planters. Okay, so here's a couple that come to mind. I guess we'll start with the Goshiki osmanthus that I mentioned. So this wasn't necessarily for a client. This was, I designed and planted this last fall, and it was for a competition that was sponsored by Monrovia and Digging and Gathering, which is a national organization of professional container gardeners. So, but that container is one of my favorites, mostly being because I haven't done anything with it all year long except change out my pansies for red impatiens and a red dragon wing begonia, and it still looks fantastic. And so and I'll tell you what was planted in it, but it's one of my favorites just because it's got longevity. And I'm going to take it into the next season. I'm going to pull out those impatiens and the begonia because those aren't going to make it through the winter. And I'm going to put back in pansies, maybe of a different color or variety than I did last season, just to change it up a little bit. But and hoping that it will go through another season. So what was in it was a Goshiki osmanthus, was kind of the focal point. It had sword ferns on the backside, which offered this texture. And then it had Lonicera crescifolia, which was at the trailer, which little tiny green leaves that offer these yellow, very subtle. You don't really see the flowers, but it offers fragrance, which is fantastic. And then I had a Lonicera Bacchus's gold coming up through the Goshiki osmanthus, which they're little tiny gold leaves, and they're almost like flecks of gold, just kind of traveling through.
Beautiful.
Kind of cool. And then a Phormium Platts Black, so the strappy, and that was a darker burgundy tone, and then a Heuchera obsidian, so a dark big leafed up front. And then there was the 2 violas. So that was the combination. And again, everything has remained in that planter and made it all the way through last fall and winter and spring and summer, just changing out the annuals. And that's what I like to do. Trying to think of other containers. Oh, another container that I really loved that was a little bit surprising, only because it's got fake material in it. And I do this on occasion, is for shade plantings, we'll stick in the fall, we'll stick in faux hellebore. And there's some silk faux hellebore that are really well done and look like the real deal. But because these planters are in such deep shade, nothing flowers there. So in this one particularly, it was a Fatsia, it was some Gaultheria procumbens, but it was the peppermint, so it's the light pink berries, not the dark red berries. A hart's tongue fern, and trying to think of what else was in there. Oh, a heucherella that was gold, and then these fake hellebores, white hellebores. It was really striking, and I get a lot of comments from people how lovely it was, and again, it was incorporating just a little bit of faux material in a live planting that really made it pop. And then one more. I have one more. No, it's like my mind is going on.
So many ideas right now. I'm like writing these down.
A contorted filbert, purple majestic. So, which we defoliated. Just being who we are, we defoliated it before we planted. You don't need to do that, but it will defoliate in time. And the branches are just so beautiful, and they're it's contorted filbert, so they're twisting and crossing each other. And so that is the center plant. And then around that we did, again, I think, was it hart's tongue fern or sword fern? One of the two in the backside. Gaultheria procumbens, a tall, like a skyline, is it called Erica? It's a heath that was kind of coming up through, and then some heuchera and 2 pansies. And then I loved it. Created all these shadows, this kind of contorted filbert through the winter months. And then in the early spring, it's its new growth, which is this deep, dark burgundy foliage. So that was kind of a simple favorite of ours too. And we underplant. I will say that we underplant with spring bulbs. So that's another fun little surprise. So like with this one I just described, come March, then you start having, for us it would be maybe muscari is the first thing to come up, or galanthus, and then that's probably February, and then March you've got your early blooming narcissus or daffodil coming up through, and then in April we usually have a late blooming narcissus coming up through, and then in late April, early May is when the tulips come up, and then we're ready to change out. And I love doing that because that time of year is when it's pretty quiet in your garden. And we all forget. I forget every year. My clients forget every year that we planted these bulbs underneath. Right?
That's good.
Bulbs under this plant. And then all of a sudden it kind of starts popping up, and it's just this, it's new growth. It's fresh. It's spring, and it's really joyous and makes us all happy. I mean, we get more photos of our clients going, oh, look what came up today. And I so. So yeah, anytime, and again, we can get that way with that here in the Pacific Northwest. We can underplant with bulbs and forget that they're there, and then they come up in spring, and they really make for a spectacular planting. And that's what enables us to have those containers looking fantastic from October all the way through May.
Oh yeah.
I love the way you talk about how you design and just the creations you've made. It's so inspiring. You can tell that there's such passion there and art. There's such an art to it.
It's fun. It's fun.
Well, and all the different ideas too. And are there any examples online, if anybody watching here wanted to go look and find those specific plantings you were just talking about, especially the faux plantings? Could they go anywhere online and see those?
Yeah, I think on my Instagram, if you went to I'm not very techie. What's the things, the story that falls, you can, not in my grid, but above.
Oh, your
grid.
highlights.
My highlights. Thank you, Allison. My highlights. My highlights, there's fall planting. And I believe many of the planters I just spoke about are in that. The Monrovia / digging in, gathering, creation, I did a whole spiel on that last November. And so you can see that planting there. And then also, I believe on my website, in some of the articles, there might be, if not these containers, there's other examples of containers that we've done. And, you know, there's just a wide variety because we have a wide variety of clients and everybody has different preferences and likes and dislikes and different cultural conditions and different lighting conditions that their containers are in. So, you know, no container is the same, is all I can say to that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. That's great. And if anybody's wondering where to go for your website, it's www.gardenrevelry.com. And we have the blog pinned as a comment for anybody that's interested. They can go right there.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Yeah. So wow, so that's so cool. Oh my God, my head is swimming with all these different plant ideas.
I know, I have too.
As you're describing it, I'm trying to like just visualize all these different textures and colors, and it just blows my mind. It's so awesome. What are some of the easy ways for beginners if they wanted to get going on some of their winter and fall containers? How would you suggest they get started?
Well, I mean, looking through photos and seeing what appeals to you, what doesn't, right? That's always inspiring. Going to your local garden center. The first thing would be to make sure that you're picking out plants that are hardy for your area.
Yes.
And that's, you're going to know that by reading the tag. But you also are going to you have to remember that in planters, we've created this artificial living environment for the plants. And so everything's above ground. So if you're like I'm in a USDA zone, for me is A8B. But if I'm looking for plants for my containers, I should be looking at something that survives no less than 7B. So basically 10 degrees less than what it would be in a landscape in my area. And that's because the roots are above ground. I mean, they're insulated by soil, but nearly not the amount of soil that's in the landscape. And so you really want to make sure that you're picking out plants that are hardy for your area and for containers in your area. And then secondly, I think looking at foliage and texture and mixing textures, the large and the small and the shiny and the matte and, you know, maybe variegated. And then again, think about your color palette. And the best way to design, and we say it over and it seems so simplistic, but that thriller, filler, spiller concept is successful because it creates layers and depth in a planting, and it moves your eye throughout a planting. So whatever you're going to call it, you know, thriller, filler, spiller, or vertical, mounding, trailing, the concept is the same, is to create layers. So when you're looking at purchasing plants for your container, think about that. Think about, you know, at least 3 layers that you're filling in, and picking some plants that will kind of be successful in each, that you have one in each layer so that you have an interesting planting.
Oh, that's great advice.
Great
Yeah,
tips.
Good starting tips. Thank you.
Really good tips. And okay, so for everyone listening, and we're really excited to ask you about this too, are there any like trends that you're seeing right now in fall and winter container gardening, and especially like colors, like, you know, just.
Well, I'll tell you the trend. It's not planting. The trend is pumpkins right now. Like everywhere you go, you're seeing pumpkins, right? I mean, and stacking pumpkins seems to be the thing. So we're all stacking.
Oh, that's a fun idea.
Next to our planters, we're having a pumpkin in our planter, and maybe we're stacking pumpkins next to the planter. So pumpkins is a huge trend right now. As far as colors, you know, we're still seeing obviously a lot of autumnal color, but what I'm seeing is more of an openness or an acceptance, and more people moving to whites and blues, the cooler colors for autumn.
Oh, yeah.
And which can be a really classic look. So it's like the silver foliage and the maybe, you know, light blue to violet pansies or violas and the olive greens. I'm seeing more of that. And then, another thing I've seen as of late is plantings that are all green, different tones of green, but again, different textures, so you've got interest, and then just wrapping it with pansies. So, you know, you might have something that's small leafed is your focal plant in the middle, and then you've got something that's, you know, heuchera or larger leafed or Virginia, and then you've got this trailer of ivy, but then the rest of it's all just pansies. So it's simple, but it feels really elegant.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Those, I think, I'm trying to think if there are any other trends. I mean, and then just the continuation of, using more faux plant material. You're seeing people use things, or dried plant material mixed into their life.
Okay.
I've seen a lot more of that as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
That's fun.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So talking about, you know, what is it, pumpkins and different things to use out there, it brings to mind, you know, the holidays are coming up. And so with them coming up, do you design with certain colors or plants in mind related to the holidays, or do you keep it kind of more non-holiday designish?
Well, my personal preference is to keep it non-holiday designish, because I like to tie in with the holidays through what I call container bling or accessorizing. So that's not to say that if your preference is to do the traditional holiday colors, red and green, then do it. That's you know, do what you like and love. But what I've found is that if I pick a color palette, let's say, and I tend to like the plummy colors with maybe some burnt oranges and, you know, like the gold shirt I'm wearing, blouse I'm wearing today, those colors. And then what I do is then I'll have my pumpkins, you know, I'll have a pumpkin in the planting and some pumpkins kind of around the containers now. And then as I get closer to the holiday season in December, I'll put maybe some branches, some curly willow, you know, or red twig dogwood, or I'll add in battery operated twinkle lights and tie those to my plant. Or I'll hang ornaments, or I'll put berries. So sorry. So I'll tend to tie in the holiday theme with more of the accessory that I can then quickly pull out. The planting hasn't changed, but I'm still kind of going with the theme of the holiday. And maybe I just leave one spot in the planter blank, and that's where the pumpkin is at that now. And then come December, it's an ornament. And then come February, it's something Valentine's Day related. And then maybe Easter, it's something Easter related, or whatever holiday it is that you're celebrating. But that's another way. It's just to kind of keep a little hole in the planting for you to put in your, you know, whatever it is that you want to exercise. I don't like to do too much. I don't want to, like, too much is too touchy for me. It's, you know, you want to keep it simple. And that's why twinkle lights are really great, because they're festive, they bring cheer, they bring brightness. You know, they're little battery operated. You can just stick it behind it, kind of wind it through your focal plant. But that's typically how I tie in with the holidays versus going with a specific color palette. You also could do that with your annuals, though. I guess, I mean, here I am thinking as I'm talking out loud, but you know, you could have your foliage plants and your center plant all remain the same, and maybe pansies right now or are orange. And then in December, you just pop those pansies out and you plunk in red cyclamen, which are really beautiful. And then after, you know, January or February, you either plunk the red cyclamen out or you leave them in for Valentine's Day. So you can do it with annuals as well. It's not a huge investment, and you can just switch those items out without having to switch out the whole planting.
Yeah, great tip for just a quick, easy little change. I like that.
All great ideas. I love the container bling.
And we as humans kind of do that naturally, right? Like when the seasons change, I mean, we change, you know, we have different things that we eat, we have different celebrations, and so we kind of like to change it up. And so those are just easy ways that you can change it up without having to do a wholesale change.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love all of those ideas.
Wow.
So for anyone new to container designing this year and they want to create a fall or winter container, are there any, like, do you see any common mistakes that some gardeners might make, and what would you suggest that they do to avoid those? That makes sense.
The first one is we touched on is just picking plants that aren't hardy in in your region, and that, you know, no matter what you do, they're going to fail because they're not meant to survive in temperatures that you have in your region. So the first thing would be reading the tag and just making sure that your plants that you're planting are going to be hardy. And again, dropping one zone 10 degrees down lower than what you think what the minimum temperature is in your area. And then I think the second thing is watering. People forget to water, you know, especially in climates like ours where we get a lot of water. We just assume that our plantings are getting water, but not so much. I mean, often we have them under the eaves, so they're not going to be getting water. But even if we have them outdoors in a place where they would normally be getting water, if you've planted them fully enough, and you're going to want to plant your planters fuller in the fall than you do in the spring and the summer, because we're in a dormant growing season. So they're not going to grow very much from now through March. So you have the ability to, you know, plant either bigger plants, like instead of your quarts, you could maybe plant a gallon, or you can plant more in a container. But that being said, so if your plantings are full, the foliage is going to deflect the rain. So whatever rain's coming down is going to hit that foliage, and then the rain's just going to kind of, you know, run down the side of the pots, and it's not actually getting to the soil, which is where the roots can absorb and pick up the water. So that's a common mistake that we make just because we're looking outside, it's raining, and we don't even think about watering our containers. So those would be, I think, the biggest thing is hardiness, watering, and then, yeah, just planting fuller in the fall.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah. And also along those lines too, if you could condense down 3 specific tips for any beginning gardener out there, container gardener, for maintenance over this winter, what would they be?
Again, watering, right? We just kind of touched on that, and not just watering blindly. You certainly don't have to water as often as you would have to in the spring or summer months, but you want to be checking it. You want to be checking it maybe once a week, and if it's, you know, the best test is the finger test, I always say, and so put your finger in the soil and get 2 knuckles deep. If it's, you know, moist at the tip, then you don't need to water. If it's not, then you need to water. So watering definitely from a maintenance standpoint. If you're looking at the weather and it looks like temperatures are going to be below freezing, you want to protect your plantings. And so you're going to want to get out and, you know, maybe you wrap them with burlap or a sheet or, you know, even a garbage bag, just something to give them a little more insulation. And then maintenance wise, oh, and then snow. I mean, a lot of people deal with snow, and snow can be tricky because snow can be an insulator and actually protect your plant if it's that kind of light snow and we haven't gotten a heavy dumping of it all in one sitting. And then you can just leave that snow on because it's actually helping protect your plants. It's more if it's like the heavy dumping of wet snow that's really heavy, that then you're going to want to get out and maybe whack it off, because it's more about the breaking of the branches in the plants than actually the temperature. And you don't want this, let's say you have a cypress in the middle of your planter as a focal plant and it's this heavy snow. What happens is it basically just, you've seen it all over the place, like the branches just kind of splay, and then you've got this really weird looking plant in the middle.
Yeah.
And then it often breaks too. So those probably are my top 3 maintenance tips.
Great tips. Great.
Those are
Yeah.
great tips.
Very useful. Yeah.
So, okay, as a professional container designer, do you have a favorite season to design in? And if you do, what?
I don't. I know.
Put you on the spot.
I have an answer, but I'm just ready for the season when it's time to change. And especially we only change out 2 seasons a year. So I love fall. I love when the air gets a little crisper and the colors are just that much more saturated. And we, because we live in the Northwest, we have lower light levels this time of year, which actually does increase like the intensity of the colors. So
true.
yeah, so I mean, I love it. And I love that there's not this distraction of all of the bloom and color that can really, like, the foliage, you could just, really concentrate on the foliage. Not that I couldn't do that in spring, but you get me in a garden center and I'm just like, oh, that's a cool plant. Oh, that's a cool plant. But then by the time spring and summer comes, I'm ready for a change. And I think maybe I grew up in California. although I've lived in, Washington most of my life, I still have this yearning for tropicals in the summertime. And so I love incorporating tropicals in my summer plantings. I love bringing some of my house plants outside and incorporating those into plantings. I love kind of creating them for clients too, because it feels like I'm creating an oasis.
Yeah.
That's very different from Washington. So it's almost like they can go out their back door and they feel like they've gone on vacation or they're in a different place. So yeah, I don't have a preference. I'm ready for each when they come, and I love different things about each season. I'm glad. I feel for those that live in the Midwest. If I had to plant in the winter there, I would have a season I hate the most. Those women and men work hard during the winter. The soil's frozen and pulling plants out, and so we're pretty spoiled here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
I love that answer, though. That is really inspiring, just to think, each season has its merits, and it's so fun to just, like you said, just try new things, and you're ready for the next season after that. So that's fun.
Yeah. Now, Cindy, I'm going to go off script here real quick because this question just popped in my head. You have such a passion for creating containers and building containers and just all the design work and everything. If anybody out there listening to this live is interested in becoming a professional container gardener and doing something similar or exactly what you do, is there somewhere they can go to start, looking at education pieces or resources or anything for them to get started?
Yeah, there is actually. Digging and Gathering is a great place to start there because it is a group of professional container gardeners, and there's they've got a Slack channel. There's a lot of conversation happening, and there's members that have been doing this as long as I have in that organization, and there's members that have been doing it for just a year or actually thinking about starting their own business. So I hope in a year that I will be able to say you could come to me as well, because I am hoping to put together some type of program that will help mentor those that are starting their own garden, container garden design business. For me, it started a little bit as a hobby, and then it went to what I call a jobby. So job, but it was a hobby. It was making money, but it wasn't my profession. I certainly couldn't have lived off the income I was making. And then it became a profession. And so, there's certain steps that you have to take to be able to do that, to be able to make money and still love what you're doing. And so if anybody's considering it and it's been a hobby, then I encourage you to explore making it a career. It's totally feasible. Or if you don't want the pressure of planting for others and maybe managing employees, then keep it as a hobby or a jobby.
Definitely. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
So, okay, we're kind of wrapping up here. And again, we love chatting with you whenever we get a chance. So
with you guys.
Oh, thank you. And we wanted to know what's coming up for you in the next, 6 months to a year, or do you have any speaking engagements coming up we can come and see you at, or what's coming up?
Okay, I do. I'm going to be speaking at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show. So I'm giving 2 seminars there. One on Wednesday and one on Friday. One is going to be on basically designing a container that's going to take you through all the seasons, much of what we spoke about today. And then the other is Container Gardening 101, how to container garden like a professional. It's kind of all the tips and tricks and hacks on doing things like a professional. It just make it a little better. And then I'm also doing Container Gardening Wars, so I'll be on stage there. I don't know who I'm going to be competing against yet.
Duking it out.
I know. Duking it out. And
That's
then,
great.
Other than that, I've got a couple projects that I'm working on for May. And again, I'm really hoping, I'm really going to kind of put my focus to creating some education opportunities for both the homeowner and the burgeoning, or kind of the, container gardener that's wanting to learn how to be a little bit more profitable or run their business a little more efficiently. So.
Oh, that's exciting.
That's really exciting.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold me to it. Hold me to it. Don't let me.
We will. We're
Well,
excited.
So Cindy, is there anywhere online that people can connect with you directly, like email, direct message, any different platforms?
Yeah, so I'm on pretty much all the platforms now. I'm most active on Instagram. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Instagram by far the most active. Twitter probably the least. My website, you can go. There's there are blog. There's articles there. There's also an opportunity to sign up for a newsletter that I put out monthly. I haven't been the most consistent on it. What happens is then, I get into planting season and clients, and planting's my focus, and I drop off on the newsletter. But it's something I'm working on. But there are tips and tricks in those newsletters. And so I encourage you, if you're interested, to sign up for that. And then I'm hoping Sean and Allison are going to teach me a little bit about YouTube, and maybe get it on YouTube and do some instructional videos on how to plant a container. So we'll see. That's what
Yes.
Oh, exciting. Yes.
We can't wait to help and be a part of that and help you with your journey, because you have so much to share, and we just want to help you get it out there.
So much to offer.
Whatever we can do.
well, thank you. You guys are the best.
Oh, you're the best.
You're the best.
You're the best. Tucker's the best too. Tell
Yes.
Tucker we're happy we got Tucker.
I don't know where he went.
He's camera shy. But Cindy, again, thank you so much for joining us a second time. We love all your fall and winter advice. It really inspired, I think, both of us, we could say.
Oh, yeah, I learned some new plants. There are some
I
plants
know,
out there
there's
I'd
so
never
many.
heard of before, so this is fun.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, feel free. You can email me. I think my email address is on the website. You can always DM me on Instagram. I love sharing. I love sharing both my passion and the knowledge and the mistakes that I've made over the years. And so anything that I can do to help others have that passion or get into container gardening in maybe a more streamlined fashion. I mean, I had to learn a lot of things the hard way, but if I can help others do that without some of the struggles and mistakes that I made, then it's just a win. I just love it. So
That's awesome.
That's so fun.
Your passion is enthusiastic and inspiring.
thanks. It's fun.
Well,
What else? I mean, it's manageable, and you can easily change it up. You make a mistake, so what? You change it up the next year or the next season, or you just mark it down as Mother Nature screwed with me this year. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it again next year, whatever it is. But
Your passion is contagious.
yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Thank you to everyone for watching either live or on the replay. Please make sure, if you have any questions for Cindy, make sure and reach out. And you can leave a comment right here on this live.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And make sure and
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure, Cindy. Thanks for being
thank
here.
you so much. And we hope you guys are able to join us next week. We're going to be talking to author Carol Michael
Yes.
about critters in the garden, and she's got a whole bunch of books, but she's going to be talking about a really fun seasonal book that she wrote. So we're excited to talk to her
Yeah, it'd be really fun to have Carol on.
Hey.
So
Yay.
thank you, Cindy. Have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye. Bye, Cindy.